Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the highly engineered reality hiding inside your kid's absolute favorite lunchbox staple. Now, for decades, we've basically been conditioned to view that little rectangular box with the tiny, colorful straw as this wholesome, essential part of a healthy diet. But, well, when we actually strip away the vibrant packaging and dig into the science, the history, and the raw nutritional data, what's really inside is pretty shocking. So let's take a seriously eye-opening journey into what we are actually feeding the next generation.
So we have to start by tackling this massive marketing myth. You know the one. It positions these little Tetra Paks as absolute immunity-boosting miracles for kids. And honestly, the advertising is incredibly persuasive, right? We're constantly shown pictures of sun-drenched orchards, perfectly glowing fruits, and promises of vital nutrients. But we really have to ask ourselves, is this packaged liquid actually acting as a health supplement for our kids, or is it something else entirely? To really figure that out, we need to compare it directly to something we universally agree is just straight-up junk food.
Check this out, because this brilliantly illustrates the deception right out of the gate. Ounce for ounce, packaged fruit juice often contains more sugar than a literal can of cola. Yeah, you heard that right. A standard soft drink sits right around 10 to 13 grams of sugar per 100 milliliters. Meanwhile, your popular packaged fruit juices, they frequently clock in at 13.5 grams for that exact same amount. Think about it. We would never, ever pack a can of cola in a kid's school tiffin and call it a healthy choice. Yet, we do it literally every single day with packaged juice. Now, to be fair, there has been a tiny bit of movement in the industry recently. After facing just immense public pressure and even some long legal battles from health activists, a major manufacturer actually agreed to reduce the sugar content in their packaged juices by 21%. And look, that is absolutely a collective win. We should celebrate that. But we also need to pause and ask a really critical question here. If you take a highly concentrated, ultra-sugary syrup and make it just a slightly less sugary syrup, does that magically transform it into health food? Okay, Section 1. Inside the Tetra Pak, the processing. Let's look at how the stuff is actually made. So the reality here is that companies are rarely, if ever, using fresh juice in these boxes. Fresh juice spoils quickly, right? So to save massively on their shipping and storage costs, manufacturers take fresh juice and subject it to incredibly intense heat. This harsh process evaporates the water, and it leaves behind this thick, dense, sticky liquid known as fruit juice concentrate. This syrup can then just sit in vats for months on end without going bad. It's an incredibly cost-effective strategy for the manufacturer, for sure, but it creates a massive nutritional problem for us, the consumers. Because that extreme heating process completely destroys the natural taste, the vital enzymes, and even the color of the fruit, the manufacturers literally have to chemically re-engineer the syrup just so it resembles fruit again. It's honestly like a bizarre science experiment. First, they have to add the water back in. But wait, now it doesn't taste right, so they pump it full of natural and artificial flavors. Oh, and the color looks totally off, so they drop in additives like beta-carotenes, which you'll see labeled as INS 160A. Then they throw in stabilizers like pectin 440 just to force the texture to feel right in your mouth. And finally, the grand finale. They dump in extra added sugar to make it palatable. So what you're drinking isn't really juice anymore. It's a rebuilt chemical beverage. Which brings us to Section 2, the nutrition illusion versus the sugar reality. Let's actually deconstruct the label on a standard 180 milliliter kids juice box. Usually, the nutrition label actively distracts you from what's really going on. You'll see a fancy list of minerals on the back, but when we break down the actual percentages of a daily recommended allowance, it's a joke. You're getting 2.5% of your sodium, potassium is at a completely insignificant 1.7%, calcium 1.5%, and iron is a mere 1%. A child would literally have to drink dozens of these sugar-filled boxes every single day just to get a meaningful amount of these basic minerals. It is statistically meaningless. Now, I know exactly what you might be thinking right now. You're saying, okay, but doesn't it provide essential vitamin C? Because, let's be honest, this is the ultimate go-to defense for packaged juice. The labels practically scream at you that one box meets a massive percentage of your daily vitamin C requirements. But let's put that into perspective for a second. We aren't 1,700 sailors on a months-long sea voyage desperately trying to fight off scurvy, right? Vitamin C is abundantly, ridiculously easy to find in nature today. Look at the real food alternatives. A child can easily get 100% of their daily vitamin C from a simple glass of fresh lemonade, or just half of a regular orange, or, get this, an incredibly tiny 1/10 of an Indian gooseberry, also known as amla. We absolutely categorically do not need to rely on a highly processed, sugary Tetra Pak just to get our vitamin C. So the crucial point we need to talk about is the sugar trade-off. What exactly are we sacrificing just to get that heavily marketed vitamin C? Well, let's look at the strict maximum guidelines established by the American Heart Association. They state incredibly clearly that children between 7 and 10 years old should consume a maximum, a hard limit, of just 24 grams of added sugar in an entire day. Ideally, our bodies don't need any added sugar at all, but 24 grams is the absolute ceiling before we start seeing serious issues. Okay, so keep that 24-gram limit locked in your mind. Just one single 180 milliliter Tetra Pak, the exact tiny size that gets slipped right into a standard school tiffin, contains over 13.3 grams of added sugar. Think about that. That means in just a few quick sips at lunch, a child is instantly consuming more than half of their entire daily limit of added sugar. And that's before they have had any other snacks, treats, or sweetened foods for the rest of the day. Moving on to Section 3, the health risks for children. Let's see how this all builds into some serious physiological risks. The fundamental difference between eating a piece of fruit and drinking a packaged juice really boils down to one absolutely crucial element: fiber. When you eat fresh fruit, all those natural sugars are tightly bound up in heavy, complex fiber. This means your body has to work for it. It results in slow digestion and a nice, steady release of energy. But that harsh industrial juicing and evaporating process we talked about, it completely strips away the fruit's natural fiber. You're just left with pure liquid sugar. And without fiber, you are fundamentally changing how a child's body reacts to those calories. Let me walk you through exactly what happens inside the body without that protective fiber. At minute 1, the juice is swallowed as a liquid. By minute 5, because there's absolutely no solid matter to break down, it's rapidly absorbed directly into the bloodstream. By minute 15, blood sugar violently spikes. And by minute 30, the body is in panic mode. It floods the system with insulin to bring the sugar down, causing rapid, wild hormonal fluctuations. It's literally a biological roller coaster inside your kid's body. Now, in the short term, maybe they just get a crazy sugar rush and a cranky crash. But when these massive blood sugar spikes happen repeatedly, day after day, over a span of years, the damage seriously compounds. A massive meta-analysis, we're talking covering approximately 200,000 participants here, revealed a really stark reality. Regular consumption of these fruit juices shows a direct, measurable link to an increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes. The data is clear, and it is pretty sobering. So, finally, Section 4, the verdict, and healthier alternatives. How do we actually fix this? Well, the evidence overwhelmingly proves that packaged juice is basically just highly engineered syrup. But fortunately, the solutions are incredibly simple and totally accessible. The absolute most powerful alternative? Just eat the whole, fresh fruit. That way, you get all that vital, protective fiber. If your kids really prefer a drink, use a blender to make smoothies instead, because blending actually keeps the whole fruit, including the fiber, totally intact. If you absolutely must serve fresh homemade juice, try to limit it to a safe level, which is about 1 glass or 237 milliliters a day for older kids. And this is a great pro tip. Serve that fresh juice alongside a solid meal. The solid food will actually act a lot like fiber, slowing down the digestion and helping to prevent those dangerous blood sugar spikes. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to do something for me. Next time you're walking down the grocery aisle, look closely at those shelves. Look right past the clever marketing, ignore the vibrant colors, and see through the bold health claims. Armed with the actual science and the reality of how this stuff is manufactured, ask yourself, what are you really feeding the next generation? When you're packing that lunchbox tomorrow morning, will you choose the chemically rebuilt syrup, or will you choose the real fruit? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.